I think the answer to any objection you get is always, for me, it's always the same. Like, I know where I want the conversation to go, and I know where I want to land. So the objection is really just a place from which I need to build a bridge to where I want to go. So for me, in every conversation with a prospect, somebody interested in borrowing money, taking out a new mortgage, I always wanted to move the conversation to using the mortgage to obtain, to accelerate them meeting their financial planning goals, right? So I had a series of questions that I would ask that would take the conversation from price and rate and all that into those things, and then structuring the mortgage in a manner that complemented those things. And so that was just a bridge. So anytime you get an objection, all you really have to do, and you have to do it quickly and good, and you do it with practice, but you just build a bridge to the place that you want the conversation to go. And that's what I did regularly in Scriptapalooza.
So let's play with that for a minute. Are you ready, unscripted here, to do a quick little role play? I'll be consumer, and I'm going to give you an objection, and then let's have you build the bridge, and we'll engage, and you can role play with me. You good with that?
Always.
Okay. All right. So, Craig, I have been researching interest rates for the purposes of my purchase transaction. And you were referred to me by a financial planner, but I have a credit union as well. And that credit union is offering me an interest rate that is 0.25% lower than the one that you're quoting me. And I'm inclined to go with them unless you can match it.
Tim, I appreciate you bringing that concern to me. There's a couple of things I want to talk about. The first thing I want to do is, of course, immediately address your concern and then ask you a few questions. One thing I want to call out initially is and I'm sure you know this, mortgage interest is generally tax deductible depending on your specific setup. So a quarter in rate is really not a quarter in rate. It's probably more like a 16th in rate. And based on the loan amount that we're talking about for you, that translates to roughly about $15 a month. In your tax bracket, it's probably more like $8 or $9 a month. And given where interest rates are right now, you're probably going to have this mortgage less than 3 years because of how I'm going to manage it for you and proactively alert you to savings. So we're really not talking about a lot of money here. We're talking about maybe a few $100 difference, of which I could easily give you credit. We could come back to that. So I want to make sure that you get a great deal. And so I hope I've addressed that directly for you. At this point, with your permission, I'd like to ask you a few questions, though, about the mortgage you're seeking and the ideal outcome so we can make sure that this mortgage really complements your overall financial planning goal, which is really why your advisor referred you to me. It would be okay if I ask you a couple questions?
Absolutely.
Great. Thanks, Tim. First of all, are you currently maxing out your employer-sponsored 401k?
Not consistently, no.
Okay, we'll come back to that. I know from just us talking, you've got a couple kids, you're married. I know both you and your spouse are working, and you've got a little ways to go before retirement, just been getting the debrief from your advisor. Do you currently have all the adequate life insurance and disability insurance policies in place to protect you and your family for the next 20 or 30 years until you retire?
I don't really like life insurance, Craig. I think it's a waste of money. I don't really see the benefit in paying it. I expect to live quite a bit longer, and it just seems like a waste.
Okay. Just looking at your application here, are you aware that both your salary and your wife's salary are needed in order to pay the current mortgage you have? And based on the bank statements you gave me, you've got less than 6 months of cash reserve. So God forbid something should happen to you. It would probably result in your family having to sell their home, sell your marital home.
I've never thought of that before. It's not a very fun thing to think about, but I guess you bring up a good point.
Yeah. So let's talk about that more. And by the way, nobody likes life insurance, including me, right? I mean, it's the one thing we pay for, and we know that we personally will never get the benefit, right? So yeah. Nobody really likes that. And then finally, Tim, with regard to your two kids, do you expect that they're going to go to college at some point?
For sure. Yeah. Well, at least I hope so.
Great. I looked at some of the statements you gave me, but I didn't see anything for a 529, a college funding plan. Have you started one of those?
No, we have not. I haven't had the additional resources to feel comfortable putting that money into that account.
Totally makes sense. I'm sure you're aware that the sooner you pay for college, the cheaper it is. So we'll talk about that a little bit as well. So, Tim, from here, I would want to sort of explore some of these other places that you're not meeting your financial planning needs. And so we can stop here if you want, but I could keep going into those things. And what I could say is, one of the things we're going to look at here is you saving money on your mortgage. At the current terms that you and I are talking about, it's about $350 a month. Now, I can go back to your advisor and we can figure out where best to put that money. But I'm guessing that we could put you in a position where you can max out your employer-sponsored 401k plan with this additional funds, which will create this much additional wealth for you now. Now, if I run that all the way out at 8% a year, which is S&P average return from going back 100 years, this means you could potentially retire sooner, retire with more money, and so on. Your advisor might recommend that we use this to fund a disability insurance policy in case, God forbid, something happens to you or your wife that doesn't result in death. We want to make sure that you can be taken care of and continue to live in your marital home and pay your mortgage and so on. So what I would do, Tim, is I would basically turn the conversation into how the mortgage could help the rest of the financial plan. And then, and that's where most people who want to work with financial advisors, that's where they stop. The next piece of that further is then tying that money into something, giving it an emotional attachment. That extra $350 a month is going to be an extra $330,000 over the next 27 years, which will allow you to retire 2 years earlier or with more money or buy a better retirement home. You've got to tie it to something that's personal. And you can do that with all the different things, the insurance, the college planning, the 401k, so on and so forth.
Do you go deeper with the subject matter of the college planning out of curiosity? Like what colleges are you earmarking for your kids? Is it a state school? Is it a...
Absolutely. And I just stopped there because we were going for a while, but I would absolutely say, what is your plan to pay for college? And many people will tell me that their plan is to pay off their mortgage. Sometimes they even have a 15-year fixed and then borrow against their home equity in retirement to pay for college, which is, sort of the opposite way of what you should be doing because you're not getting the value of the time, of the velocity of money. You're not getting that value, that benefit of dollar cost averaging and the velocity of money if you do that. So I would sort of, and I never, ever, ever want to make someone feel bad. I probably did that a tiny bit with you on the insurance side, but I would never want to make anybody feel bad or stupid or uncomfortable. I want them to know that I'm trying to help solve for a financial need for their family.